this heaven?
No. It's Iowa.
Ben, see that star up there? It'll take 5 billion years for its light to reach us.
Well, I'll be goddamn. Sounds like shit kicker heaven.
When the light gets here, I'll still be around, talking about movies.
That's finger licking good.
Is that the sun? I need to leave right now.
How about I separate your head from your shoulders? Hope you don't mind none.
Actually, I'd rather be burned up by sunlight.
We're talking Near Dark on the Pod of Dreams.
Yeah!
Caleb Colton no longer belongs to our world.
We give him a week, see if we can call him one of us.
He belongs to hers.
But you have to learn to kill.
He belongs to theirs.
I want to kill.
He makes you kill tonight.
And they all belong to the night.
Just don't think of it as killing. Amen. Don't think at all. It's just something that you do night after night. It's only ever a question of how.
You nervous?
I would be too if I were you. Near Dark.
It'll be your boys falling in with control.
Check out time.
Bought yourself some time, son.
God damn, it's my family. Let him go.
Near Dark. Pray for daylight. The night has its price.
All right, well, welcome to the Pod of Dreams. Thank you for joining. We have an incredibly special guest here today, Eric Houston from North Metro TV. Eric, thanks for joining. How are you doing?
My pleasure. I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're great. We're doing great.
Doing exceedingly well, Eric Houston. And I'm going to use your last names each time I'm referencing you.
Yeah,
it's
we got double
awkward.
Double Eric here.
It's going to sound awkward. I apologize, but I don't know of a better way to do it. I don't have nicknames
Oops,
for either
all
of you.
Erics.
Yeah. 2 Erics and a Ben.
So,
Here we go. Hey,
Eric Houston.
Yeah.
So why don't you just take a second, kind of introduce yourself, talk about what you do, kind of your work here, and then we'll get going into Near Dark.
Sure. So I'm Eric Houston. I work at North Metro TV. We're a community TV station in Blaine, Minnesota, where we have a public access department. So if you live in the area, you can come. You can make your own TV shows for free. We also help people with transferring their old home movies to videotape, so you can do that here too. But a big part of my job is I'm supposed to teach classes, and sometimes that's teaching people about how to use cameras and microphones and things. And lately, that's also about talking about movie history and TV history and things like that. And you can find a lot of the history stuff I do on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/moviemaneric. Eric Lane was talking about how much he enjoyed my John Wayne documentary. That's there. That's part of a whole 4-part series of documentaries about the history of the Western. And there's a new one about the TV show Columbo, and there's all kinds of stuff on there. So
yes, is it the King of Cowboys? Is that what it was called? The John Wayne? Super good. I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it.
Did you just take, this is me just wanting to talk to you then about your process. So you make the documentary, mixing in sort of your analysis with footage from old John Wayne and interviews, and kind of, can I get a little snippet of your methodology in the creative process about making the John Wayne documentary?
Sure. So it's like I say, the John Wayne one's kind of it's the 4th part of a 4-part thing called King of the Cowboys, where I'm sort of looking at all the different actors over the history of the Western era that were referred to at one time or another as King of the Cowboys. And so I've researched it, and it sort of cuts between myself doing a sort of a presentation and talking about the thing, talking head style, and then clips from clips from movies of the time. There aren't a lot of interview footage in these ones just because there isn't a lot of, especially going back, like John Wayne, you can find a couple of interviews of, and I was able to find some behind the scenes footage of him making the Alamo that I think is in there. But especially I go all the way back to the silent era, and there aren't any.
Oh yeah, there's just not a whole lot of that
those
stuff
guys.
in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Yeah, that's
I just thought it was so interesting, like how you're talking about how he grew up in Iowa. Ben's from Iowa, so we got a lot of Iowa folks here. But wasn't like an outdoorsy cowboy kind of guy. Like he didn't want to do that kind of stuff, and then becomes an actor, and then has his whole life as this tough cowboy.
Yeah, he had absolutely no ambition. He hated the outdoors. He hated horses, at least when he was young. He was discovered on the set of, I think, 20th Century Fox, where he was working moving props was his job. And he happened to be spotted and given a starring role in what was actually the very first widescreen movie ever made, all the way back in the, early 30s, I think. And yeah, it's interesting looking, if you watch all four parts of that, you can really categorize these Western stars into two columns. Guys like John Wayne, who for lack of a better word are inauthentic, are guys who they're very much actors and it's, a role. And then these guys who really lived the life, like a contemporary of John Wayne's is Randolph Scott. And Randolph Scott came from, he had served in the Army in World War I believe, and he had a lot of experiences with horses and, and that goes all the way back to the silent era where there were guys like Tom Mix who were just Western stars who just made up their own histories to publish, claiming that they were things that they weren't. And then a guy like William S. Hart, who was a genuine Old West cowboy who knew people like the real Bat Masterson and tried to bring a lot of realism into his Western films.
Yeah, John Wayne's usually the example anybody gives about the difference between an actor and a movie star.
Sure.
John Wayne was charismatic and captivating, but you never got the feeling that he was disappearing into a role. He was just so commanding as a screen presence. This is one I always heard people cite as a movie star.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I don't think John Wayne's bad. There are plenty of John Wayne movies I like, but it is interesting to, a thing I found out when I was researching the video is that John Wayne was bald. And he kept that hidden very well. But you can go on YouTube and you can find home movie footage of him walking around his boat without his wig on.
Like bald his entire life? Like
adult life, I assume.
Yeah, his adult. Yeah. And I mean, that's true of a lot of actors.
This kind of receding hairline, like that.
I would say more like, podcasts are, of course, a famously visual medium.
Right. Well, that's more for you, not for the listeners. I'm just using that as a reference for myself. Yeah, people.
But yeah, no, he was, he was a bald, which is, I'm bald. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's just
bald is beautiful.
But Wayne, part of this, I think this sounds like a knock, but it's something I do admire about him is he was such a master of his image. He was a guy who would watch his performances over and over so that he could hone exactly how he walked and how he moved and how he was being perceived by audiences. I'm not accusing you of this, Ben, but I think that there's a way of talking about the difference between actor and movie star that can be a little bit derogatory toward movie star. But, guys like that John Wayne or Tom Cruise, they don't fall out of bed looking like that. That it is a skill in and of itself. And Wayne was a master of it.
Oh, I don't think it's bad to be a movie star. That's why they get paid loads of money and why they're so fun to watch. And not saying it's not work. Just that there's a difference between somebody you're rooting for and you care about versus like, here's Daniel Day-Lewis and I just forget that it's Daniel Day-Lewis. It's just different from my perception as an audience member. No. And I'm not knocking John Wayne. Eric Lane doesn't really know this, but I have flirted with a couple of times of doing the Searchers on this podcast. So
okay.
That's on my to-do list.
Yeah, we haven't done a Western yet, so that's good.
Well, before today,
segueing into Near Dark.
That's right.
So just real quick, so moviemanaeric.com, that's the URL. Or is it NorthMetroTV.com? Is there a website there too as well?
Movie Man Eric will take you to a page on NorthMetroTV.com, and from there you can get to the YouTube and everything else.
Yes, go check it out. Definitely recommend it. So reached out to Eric, asked him to join, gave him the option to pick whatever movie he wanted in the universe, and he picked Near Dark, which I was very excited for. But Eric, why did you pick this movie?
Well, Eric.
Yes, Eric.
When you did invite me onto the show, when you sent me the email, I had just watched Near Dark the night before, and at the time that you asked me, it was literally the only movie I was capable of thinking of. This is a movie that, I'm sure we'll talk about this, has been unavailable really to watch for a long time, and for a lot of people it's a movie that they've been wanting to see for a long time. I kind of got lucky. I had somehow never really heard of it, which is surprising because this is exactly the sort of movie I love. But I'd never really heard about it until a month or two ago. I put it on my list as a thing to watch. And then that particular night I was looking for something to watch. I saw that Near Dark was streaming on Shudder, and I went, hey, great. I turned it on, and I was just absolutely blown away by this movie. This is such a beautiful and hypnotic movie. Not at all I was expecting sort of a Lost Boys kind of thing, and what it is completely different.
Yeah, I agree. It's completely different. There's like one or two shots where I got vague Lost Boys vibes, like a couple of atmospheric. There's weird lighting on a hill, but other than that, it's very, very different than Lost Boys. And I didn't know anything about this movie other than I vaguely knew vampires. That was it. I'd never seen it nor heard of it, nor do I remember anybody ever talking about it.
Well, Lost Boys is an interesting, because that is like a culturally significant movie. Like everybody knows Lost Boys. At least absolutely. Everybody in that sort of grew up in the 80s, 90s. It was on TV all the time. Did they come out the same
year? Just as a side note here, did they both come out as 87? Is that both of them? I don't know when Lost Boys came out.
I'm terrible at movie years. I'm absolutely terrible.
87, yeah, they did. Lost Boys is 87.
So it's weird that, Lost Boys is the one I've seen, I know people talk about, and was on and around. And Near Dark just seemed to up and vanish. It's a movie that didn't resonate with my demographic really at all. I don't know. Eric Lane, is that this case for you? And I guess Eric Houston.
Yes, 100%. It's such a weird thing because if you just even look at the cover, that would be a movie at Blockbuster. I would have been like, I want to see that. You know what I mean? But I don't remember it being at Blockbuster ever. It was never on TV. And I had, in the last 5 or 6 years probably, I've heard people talk about it, and it's been one that I've Google searched and just you couldn't stream it. And so when I reached out to Eric Houston and he mentioned it's up on AMC Plus and Shudder, I saw it on Shudder. I was super stoked to check it out. But yeah, the speculation we had was that the Tangerine Dream aspect was what made it so difficult to stream. That was completely speculating that their involvement in the movie was what was the hang up on why you couldn't get it, but who knows? I don't know why it hadn't been released wide on digital or on streaming.
I mean, there are definitely some weird rights issues involved. I hear what you're saying about Tangerine Dream. The only reason that doesn't ring true to me is just because it's not like it's hard to see Legend or Risky Business.
Yeah, and some of Michael Mann's movies, like The Thief, is on streaming, but I think what's his earlier movie that is not streaming? I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but that's just total speculation. But yes, when you suggested it, I watched it and I was really blown away. I was expecting Lost Boys. There is a lot of vampire stuff in this movie. I mean, it's clearly a vampire movie, but it's a totally different take on it, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Oh, I was just going to say that Catherine Bigelow, right? I think that's an interesting place to discuss because she's such an important filmmaker for me, and the movies she's made, and again, having not seen this before, it's so crazy to me that her career, what she's done. She was the first woman to win an Oscar, right? As best director. Yeah. Okay.
For Hurt Locker, yep.
Hurt Locker, yeah. But you just go down her list of filmography. This being her first solo directing movie, right? Because she did Loveless before that. Point Break and Hurt Locker, and she hasn't made a movie.
Hyper masculine movies. I just want to point out these are very dude bro movies, and I love them. I'm really not knocking that, but they're not movies you think when you think female energy or whatever stereotype you want to have about what kind of movies a woman would make. It's not what comes to mind.
See, I would actually disagree with that, if I may.
Okay.
I think these movies are very subversively feminine. There's definitely a lot of trappings of masculinity about these movies, but like this one's a great example of this. So the plot of the movie is essentially that a guy, this Texan, kind of cowboy-esque, I guess, teenager guy named Caleb meets a girl named May at a bar, and he tries to put the moves on her, and she bites him and turns him into a vampire. But from the moment she bites him, their power dynamic in this movie completely switches, because in all of the scenes of that first night together are just gorgeous. And it's him taking her around Texas and like to this horse ranch, and then at dawn trying to take her home, but also he wants to put the moves on her, so he hides the car keys and he's being a real creep and being very.
I have that same thought. Like he's being an absolute creep ball right now. He's being very aggressive and very aggro. But then once she bites him, he really becomes like her pet for much of the rest of the movie. He's lost and he follows her lead and he's completely dependent on her. A big part of the plot of the movie is that he can't bring himself to drink anyone else's blood, so he always ends up suckling from her arm to get his nutrition, right? But, like I say, he's just completely at her mercy once that happens.
Like a baby and a mother kind of situation there.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then like in, just to look at, talks about some of Catherine Bigelow's other movies, like Point Break is such a deeply homoerotic movie.
Sure.
And, and then the part in that Lori Petty plays where, she has some interesting, power dynamics within the scenario. She does play in what feel, and I by this I mean Catherine Bigelow, in what feel like very masculine places, but she also seems very expert at, exposing the roots of the masculinity and, sort of attacking it in these movies in interesting ways.
Yeah, because doesn't Strange Days have a similar setup where there's this like guy entering a group, there's a woman that he's attracted to, and then the rest of the group are kind of maniacs? Like Point Break and this have a very similar setup in that way.
Yeah. Well, she's very interested in these marginalized communities.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Like vampires, they're marginalized in this movie.
Vampires, surfers,
yeah.
Bomb diffusers,
Interesting, they never say vampire in this movie, right? Did I miss that? I never heard them say the word vampire. And you never see the fangs, right? That never pops up in the movie.
Yeah, that's also deliberate. It made me think of, I guess, sort of spoilers for Midnight Mass, another movie that kind of deals, very, very different. But they take the same approach of we're not going to use the word vampire, and we're not really showing fangs. We're not going to really talk about the conceit in traditional words.
I also like that they were kind of like scavengers. They weren't like seeking out. They were just kind of finding people on the fringe to feed on, like at the bar, and but I think that's like a kind of a different depiction of, like, usually vampires are just like rich, tough, like,
they're very
invincible.
regal and ancient, and they've read all the great literature in their lives, look elegant. And this is the opposite. It looks miserable to be a vampire in this movie. It does not look appealing even slightly.
Oh, I think it looks like a blast. My one qualm with this movie is that I am on the side of the vampires the whole time.
Oh, wow.
The whole time. At the, I guess spoiler alert.
We'll talk about whatever we want to talk about, because I definitely want to talk about the ending.
But at the end of the movie, Caleb manages somewhat ridiculously via blood transfusion to de-vampire himself, and then de-vampires May, and all the other vampires end up dead. But I was so upset because this, I identified very strongly with the vampires. Sort of the marginalization of their society. Bigelow's very good at portraying them as other, right? As not a part of human society. So they're really just doing what they need to do to survive. And especially that early hunting montage where we see, so Bill Paxton, the cast of this movie is unbelievable. Bill Paxton.
We gotta talk about Bill Paxton because he is throwing 1,000 miles an hour in this movie. But
this is some A-level Paxton. But he sort of dresses up like a gigolo to attract some people. Lance Henriksen and I can't think of her name right now. Jeannie Golds, what's her name?
The one who plays Diamondback?
Jeanette Goldstein.
Jeanette Goldstein.
Yeah. She's in Aliens also.
Right, she's Vasquez.
Yep.
They sort of pick up some drifters who are also trying to rob them. It's all great. And, I mean, granted, the movie, there's then a scene. One of the things I really loved about this movie is all of those sequences, and May and Caleb are like after a trucker. With the exception of May and Caleb, you don't see the end of those scenes. You don't see Bill Paxton attack the young women. You don't really see Lance Henriksen tear into the would-be robbers. So you get this opportunity to feel like, and I think I probably misspoke in saying that they're just doing what they need to do to survive, because then there's that later great sequence at the honky tonk bar where now you get all of the graphic dismemberment that the movie's been denying you up to that point, as they're just ripping people apart on screen. And that's sort of the moment that the movie turns. So it's not Interview with the Vampire and, pure romantic immortality. Now it's brutality and terror and just really remarkable stuff.
Yeah, well, so that scene, and this is going to sound like a criticism, it's not. That honky tonk scene, and I kept thinking Western all throughout it. I mean, I love the setting. I mean, we're talking about the actors, but I love the way, the setting, the ambiance, where this all takes place in very rural, mostly Southern America. It's its own kind of character in of itself. But that scene was like vile, cynical, miserable, horrible, but wonderful. Because, they're not doing what they need to do. They're reveling in. Bill Paxton especially loves having to murder people. He's not conflicted even slightly morally about it. He's like, this is fun. That seems to be the point for his character. The other ones might be slightly more ambivalent. May seem to be like, oh, this is the night has its price. She says that. Maybe for some there's a little bit of moral conflict. But that facade mostly goes away. And even for some of the other ones, it's just raw power. I'm sitting here with cattle, and it was a scene that I loved for a lot of reasons. You've seen a bunch of scenes in bars throughout movie history, but I can't remember too many where the bikers actually, everybody in the bar genuinely looked that scared. There's the first one that Bill Paxton screws with, but then there's another one. He's just quivering. He's like, I didn't see anything, man. I didn't see anything. I didn't see nothing. I was like, when was the last time I saw, like, that's not comedic, like somebody looking genuinely scared and just everybody looking terrified? And I just got the image of like a band of outlaws. I mean, you could have gone through swinging doors in a Western. And you're like, we own this town. We own this. The law can't help you here. And I got those vibes. And I loved it. But
I thought of Terminator 2, like right when he walks into the biker bar and just like owns the guys. The Cameron Bigelow thing is such an interesting dynamic. Like, their filmmaking is so similar. They were married for a good deal of time, right?
You're using some of the same actors. I mean, they just filmed Aliens right before with the cast of Aliens is in this.
Wasn't in one of the marquees, wasn't the movie Aliens above the movie marquee when he's in the small town? Yeah, so it's interesting because there's a lot. Paxton he's in every Cameron movie.
Lance
Henriksen and Diamondback Goldstein. Yeah,
I mean, and that's one of the things that really blew me away about this movie is I'm such a huge fan of Aliens, and was
all-time great.
Yeah. I mean, that was a movie that like my dad and I used to bond over. I mean, we can talk all day about a man showing his 10-year-old son Aliens, but whatever. It was.
I saw it earlier than that.
Hey, there you go. But to start watching this movie and to see. All of the heavy hitters except like Sigourney Weaver and Paul Reiser from Aliens are in Near Dark, and it's and doing it's such a testament to Lance Henriksen, the difference between Bishop and Jesse the Vampire. The pure, especially he does seem, sort of, I don't know, greasy, but like slick and appealing in the first part of the movie. But then when you get to that honky tonk scene, just the joy and malevolence as he orders a beer in a glass, and then the waitress brings those to him, and he tells her to keep the beer, that he just wants the glass so he can cut her throat and drink it out of the glass. I mean, that's the kind of theatrics you were talking about, Ben. That's just
she's terrified. She genuinely.
And she does a tremendous job.
Oh, yeah, everybody. Those little small roles were filled super well. Even the guy behind the bar with the shotgun. I mean, he's genuinely anxious and trying to load the shotgun, and he's got a gun, but he's scared to use it, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. He thinks even if I get a shot off, I'm probably not killing all of them. It was great, but it's interesting to me that you were on the side of the vampires. I was almost immediately not. Their position is so precarious, right? They can't live anywhere. They can't stay anywhere. Even May, she's at some bar. She's getting hit on by some creep, and she's like starting to panic, like, get me home, because she's in the car with some random dude who, if his car had broken down 5 miles away, she'd be burnt to a crisp at that point. Or you see them like panicking to get blocking the sun in their vehicle because they have to be terrified of the sun.
Mm-hmm. So they
can't live normal lives. Yes, they have to just drift. Again, I just thought of this like Band of Outlaws from a Western, place to place in just very remote parts of America and preying on people to survive. And then they're just sitting in hotel rooms when they're not killing people, playing cards, passing the time. But they spend so much of the movie panicked and anxious. And I thought, wow, that's about the least appealing portrayal of vampires I've ever seen. Like I say, Eric Lane mentioned, I mean, it's usually they're it's like, oh, wow, they've survived for centuries. I like when May said, see that light? It takes 5 billion years for that light to get here. I'll still be around when that light from that star gets here. But then you're like, oh, this is what you have to do to make it 5 billion years. It doesn't look fun to me. It looked really, really unpleasant. I mean, I liked that it was antithetical to the Anne Rice. I mean, Interview with the Vampire. I had an Anne Rice phase very intensely in the late 90s. And this is just antithetical to that. I mean, they can't live normal lives at all. I mean, it just.
But all of those early May lines, those are completely my cup of tea. She says all of this kind of, somewhat misguided, but just this really dreamy. It really fits with the Tangerine Dream score and the sort of hypnotic way of this movie. She says early on, I think this line is both hilarious and beautiful. She just kind of looks up into the night sky and she goes, the night, it's deafening. And it's like right on the line between, it's like that real like kind of art school student line of profound and stupid, but like it really just, I don't know, it just hit me just right. And I think one of them later in the movie says the night is so bright it'll blind you. I think what I like about the vampires is all embodied in May. She just really embodies this sort of, I don't know if optimism is the word because it isn't.
I think she's the most idealistic of all of them.
Yeah, there's an idealism to her. There's a sort of a hopefulness to her, and like that she can see the beauty in things. And this whole movie is, and I'm really glad you brought up all that fear in the bar scene, Ben, because this movie is so. I think this movie is less built on plot and less built on, and we talked about how it doesn't really deal with vampire lore at all. It's a movie that's really built on emotion and feeling, and those sorts of feelings that May in particular has are, I think, what I find so appealing. Like I definitely, I watched it a second time for the recording. As I was watching it, I was thinking about how I had felt the first time about sympathizing with the vampires. And you definitely get to a point in that movie where I was thinking, well, I don't want to keep spending any time with Lance Henriksen and the rest of these murder vampires. But I absolutely think Caleb and May should get in a tinfoil covered station wagon and drive to some cave or something somewhere. Set up shop in a dilapidated mansion or something.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. Did you think the love story? Because I mean, really, that's the central plot of the movie is this love story between the two of them. Do you think it worked? Did you believe
not
it?
At all.
I see. That would be my one criticism of it. Is like there wasn't a whole lot of love there. I think when you mentioned the sort of mother-child thing, that seemed to really register more than that they were infatuated with each other. But yeah, that would be my one sort of major. I don't know if this really holds up with the love story of it.
Right, and that's part of why I kind of don't like that they end up together. And like even when I say they should run away together, I don't think it will work long term. But this movie, I don't think you can really ignore the aspect of this movie that's an AIDS allegory, and I think that's all part and parcel. It's not like they had a night together, right? They had a night together, and then her biting him is certainly symbolic of some misspent lovemaking or something that has saddled them both with these consequences, right? And I think being made at that point in the 80s, I assume at least that Bigelow is trying to say something about that. The romance that they're fighting for, or that is the foundation of what's happening to them, isn't really worth it in a lot of ways. That they're not soulmates per se, and that's where May's hope and optimism does feel naive in a lot of ways, and I think it's probably meant to.
So that's the AIDS allegory is interesting, and I don't want to just skip to the last act, but that's the part that I'm most interested in talking about and I'm the most conflicted about. Because for the first 2/3, I was supremely on board. I never lost. I don't want to use that because that isn't true. It didn't lose me, and I loved a lot of things about the ending. I mean, I like the shot of him riding the horse into town, and you see, okay, here are all the buildings. I mean, couldn't get more Western than that, getting ready for the showdown at high noon, basically. Instead of high noon, it's at night.
High midnight.
But the transfusion thing is, if we're doing an AIDS allegory, this is where I feel like the movie kind of flinches. It loses the courage of its convictions a little bit. We're going to write in, okay, if it's an AIDS allegory, a blood transfusion will cure AIDS. It won't, or it will cure vampirism. And instead of looking at that central theme at the heart of this movie, right, that's the question. Will Caleb, that's what's happening, what we're building to. Will Caleb kill somebody else for his own survival? Will we get to that point? The movie decides, okay, no, we're not going to do that. He's not going to. And we're going to save him from having to kill anybody, and we're going to actually just write away his problem with being a vampire now. Which to me is way less interesting than if he's stuck being a vampire and has to make that choice.
So there's a central theme here to you, Ben. You want a dark, depressing ending. You don't want anything happy in the end, and you want them both to be burning vampires because
not at all. There's a lot of ways you do it that could be happy. That are at least in line. I mean, the movie is so cynical and dark in the first 2/3. I mean, it sells the cynicism and the misery super well. If you're going to go the route of, hey, we figured out that transfusions will work, and you have this central question, is it worth it, or are you willing to kill for your own survival? How about ask that question of the other vampires and invert it? Say, hey, you guys can get out of this. Do you want to keep doing it? How about you, Homer? You're a kid. You're stuck looking 12 forever. That's kind of miserable. You complain about it. At least, well, basically all throughout the movie, it's a big deal. You're lonely and you want somebody to be stuck as a child with you forever. How about you? We can give you a blood transfusion and you can go through puberty and become a man and actually, find a partner and be looked at. Ask that question of them. See if the others would want a way out. It doesn't ask those other characters. We get this awkward kind of confrontation where I don't really understand what Lance Henriksen and company are doing. It's just kind of muddled and confused. And we don't get Caleb's going to be the anti-hero who's going to say, no, I'm not going to kill. I'm going to kill you guys, actually, and I'm ending this all right now. We don't get the I'm going to accept.
Well, that's Lost Boys, right? Isn't that's basically the plot of Lost Boys?
Well,
right?
or we don't get, hey, you know what? I accept it. I want to be with May. This is the cost. I think it's worth it. We don't get that either. We don't get any of these directions, which will all be a little more coherent, make more sense from my perspective. So we get something that's kind of muddled and mixed. We don't really get the showdown. It doesn't really make sense. Everything's kind of crazy. I mean, I loved the big semi thing and the explosion. It looked cool. I like that, they actually exploded a semi. I mean, that's awesome. It looked great.
Now, hold on. They don't just explode a semi. Bill Paxton climbs onto the front of a semi, burned to a cinder, and reaches into the hood and rips out pieces of the engine while screaming at the hero. And then the semi explodes. I mean, this...
Yeah, I think, honestly, in general, we're underselling Bill Paxton in this movie. Like, I can't remember a movie that I've seen where one actor just runs away with the movie like he does in this movie. I mean, the scene where he walks in, this is shit kicker heaven in here in the bar, and does the Buffalo Bill joke with the beer. Like, everything he says in this movie, finger licking good when he sucks the guy's blood. He's literally just stealing every scene, and that where he's burning up and rips the hood open is so incredible. Because you hate him, absolutely, he's terrible. But what an amazing run by him in this movie, and he's on the cover of the movie, right? Like, when was the last time some like side character became literally the cover of the film? Like, he's on the poster. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, this is 100% Paxton. So in Aliens, there's the game over scene, right? There's the game over, man.
We're all around his
game over.
I've always hated, but everybody else loves.
Yeah, well, this movie he's at that energy the whole movie.
Right.
He's at that level, and it is great. I love Paxton, but once you get to like Twister, he is really tamped down and sort of evened out into, and it's not bad. I mean, a movie like A Simple Plan, he's fantastic in working at that kind of level. But this just unfettered Paxton is.
This is before he
wonderful.
Stopped decreasing his cocaine intake or something. I don't know, but yeah, he's incredible in this movie. So great.
I heard this is a complete tangent, but I heard recently that during the making of Aliens, James Cameron went up to Paxton and said, "Hey, I just heard about this new movie that you and we have got to go see." And so he and Paxton, I don't know if it was a day off or if they left the set or what, but Cameron and Paxton went to see Evil Dead 2 together, and that just to me is everything. I would love to be sitting in the row behind those two watching Evil Dead 2.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I guess it did the ending. I guess the ending worked for you guys. I just
sure. Yeah,
I was frustrated. I didn't think it earned the happy ending.
Well, I don't think it earns the happy ending necessarily, but like that's sort of like if I had to put this movie into like a genre space, I don't think I would call it horror. I think this movie is an adult fairy tale. And looked at, because that's the only way, because you're right, a lot of, in conventional senses, in terms of a horror movie or a Western movie, a lot of the plot mechanics and the beats don't really work. But I think if you look at it like a fairy tale and, more as a dreamlike thing, it makes a lot more sense. And, and in that world, the movie has a happy ending because it has to have a happy ending. And I almost feel like the movie knows that the happy ending is BS. Like because it feels very perfunctory. May sort of wakes up on the transfusion table and, looks almost bewildered. And it's hard to tell if she's bewildered because it worked or if she's bewildered that they've done it at all. I do think there's a question in in those last moments when he quote unquote rescues her and takes her home and transfuses her or whatever. I think there's a question of consent there. And especially when you compare that the human reality or whatever to the way she's talking earlier in the movie, has he, by giving her this transfusion, has he diminished her somehow? I mean, it's a complicated question, and that's part of why I like this movie so much, is I think there's a lot of complicated ways of looking at it. But as far as that goes, it's one of those movies where I agree that I don't think the ending 100% works, but I think that the reason the ending doesn't 100% work is because I don't think this movie should end. Like, this movie is almost in that way like a Monty Python sketch where so often the Pythons just wouldn't end a sketch and let it bleed into something else. I would kind of rather this movie just bled into something else and continued that sort of dream logic of never really ending and just sort of metamorphosing into some other nightmare.
I think it worked itself into a tough place when they introduced the dad and the sister. Like, from there, it's like I feel like they wrote themselves into a hole and was like, oh, how do we get out of this? Because you can't have the dad and I suppose you could have the dad die. You can't have the little sister die. I think people would, I would have hated that. I don't want to see that little girl die.
I kind of wanted to see her.
Okay. Well,
other people like dark, cynical stuff too.
All right. Well, there you go. I did not want to see her die.
You asked earlier about if Ben wanted this movie to end with everyone dying. I very much wanted this movie to end
I'd love
with
to see
everyone
Caleb
dying.
be like, all right, I'm a vampire. I'm killing you guys, and that's going to be my last act. And May, let's look at the sunset together and explode, or whatever they want to do. But that was what I most wanted, Eric. But I think there's other directions that could have worked too. But you're right. I mean, people don't want the girl to die, really. That's not a very commercially happy idea.
This was hardly.
That's true. That's true. It wasn't that commercial.
Proven anything?
Yeah.
It's that it's not commercial.
So then
should have went for it. I guess. Yeah.
Then go for it. Then.
I don't think Bigelow cares.
That's interesting.
At any point in this, because she doesn't care about the fangs or this movie doesn't have the scene where Lestat sits down with Brad Pitt and hashes out all the vampire mechanics and all that nonsense. Sure. She does not care. The transfusion, for anybody who's seen any vampire movie, the transfusion solution makes zero sense, and it's
it really doesn't.
It doesn't, and I don't think she cares about it. And because she doesn't care about it, I don't care. I would care a lot more if there was a 5-minute scene of some, doctor character you've never seen before sitting down and being like, well, the way that this disease works is it attacks the white blood cells. So if we inject you with this kind of, if there was all kinds of, pseudoscience logic in it, it wouldn't work.
Well,
but
sure.
Since the whole movie works on that logic of it works because I said it does, I'm completely fine with that.
See, and maybe you're reading this as a fairy tale, and I guess maybe that logic makes sense. I view this as in just more of a hedonistic, nihilistic way. Being a vampire means you've got to kill to sustain yourself. The existence is miserable. But these people are strict pragmatists, it seems like, and I get that vibe from them the whole time. Hey, I got to do this. And then in the end, they kind of make a bunch of goofy choices. Nobody gets to make a real ethical choice. Nobody ends up having a real ethical dilemma, really. And we just think, oh, hey, May, you got to spend 4 years as a vampire killing people for a long time. And now you're going to go, I guess, be with this guy. I don't know if her family's still around. It just didn't make a choice. I felt like it didn't make a choice, just kind of blah. I mean, Homer runs out after the girl and explodes because he's so lonely.
That scene was a little tough. The flames that was a little tough.
That was amazing.
Looks great.
I need a 5-minute behind the scenes of how they rotoscoped those flames onto this kid's face.
The flame stuff worked great. It looks great. Yeah. All of the sequences.
Burned.
Oh, incredible!
The makeup is awesome. It looks so convincing.
The coat over their head and the smoke coming up. Yeah, that was
even
really
the first
cool.
time you see it with Caleb, and he's he doesn't even know anything. He's like, oh wait, I think he's smoking. Am I seeing? Oh yeah, he's smoking. It's not dust. He's smoking. It looks incredible.
Well, it's
but then I feel like Jesse and Diamondback would leave. Like they'd be like, all right, well, I guess we're gonna go start a new surrogate family somewhere else. Our kids all did a bunch of crazy stuff. Our boy Bill Paxton, he basically committed suicide because he's so insane that he didn't realize he was going to explode, I guess, inside.
It's because they all feel so hard. They all just feel so much. Bill Paxton is so mad at this guy who took his spur and has now broken his heart.
I get the Bill Paxton's character. He's the one who makes the most sense. He's just a lunatic. Yeah, he's just an out-and-out lunatic.
Lunatics. Like
I guess I got a more pragmatic vibe. I mean, so Jesse survived since the Civil War, at least. He's, 100 years old, 120, whatever it is.
If he isn't lying.
But isn't he younger than the little kid? Don't we establish that in the movie that the little kid's actually the oldest one? Or did I mishear that?
I was going to say, we have barely talked about Homer for the people who aren't as familiar with this movie. Homer is a, 10 or 12-year-old.
Yeah, I thought 12, but give or take, whatever.
I don't remember the actor's name, but he's played by that kid from Teen Witch, the weird kid from Teen Witch. And he is killing it. He brings such creepy little kid energy, and he does such a good job of playing that, adult trapped in a kid's body thing in this movie. And he's so jealous of Caleb because we find out that Homer is the one who had initially turned May. And so he's so jealous that now May is spending all this time with Caleb, and also that it can work out between the two of them, right? And I think it's both. I think there's an Oedipal aspect to it. I think there's both in we talked about Caleb and May having a sort of that mother-child thing, but also the lover thing. And I think that Homer's just really jealous of all of that. And he's just such this weird little creep. And that actor was so good at those roles. I wish he had done more stuff because I wish that kid had been in Goonies. That's the creepy energy that movie's missing. Get him in there.
I just started watching Goonies with my oldest. I don't think it needs more creepy energy. I think Goonies is almost perfect for a while. It's not a perfect movie, but for the first act, it's pretty close to perfect. But interesting. Yeah, I mean, it isn't a first introduction to Homer. Doesn't he grab Caleb by his junk and say...
In the trailer, yeah.
It's like, oh, geez. What a way to start.
What a guy. What a guy. Well, and it's amazing to me, too, how much, we talked about how comparatively little a cultural impact this movie seems like it had, but at the same time, you see echoes of that stuff in other things, right? Like there's echoes of Homer in Kirsten Dunst in Interview with the Vampire for sure, which is, a movie that takes it much more seriously. And then there's and then all the stuff with the cars where they drive around in this movie in these cars and they spray black spray paint on the windows or cover them with tin foil, or they run out into the sun with heavy overcoats over their heads. They do that stuff in Buffy all of the time. Like there are so many scenes of Spike running around in a spray painted car with a coat over him that definitely the people who were making stuff like this saw Near Dark and remembered it. But, for whatever stupid legal reason, we haven't been able to for so long. But yeah, it's amazing those echoes, I think.
Another scene we haven't talked about was the motel shootout. And again, Catherine Bigelow, one of the, if not maybe one, her and Cameron got to be 1 and 2 best action directors out there. So good at filming an action sequence. They're just top tier. And I really loved that whole shootout. I mean, was it necessary for the plot? No, but I loved watching it.
Well, it kind of was.
And the van ramming into the motel and getting them out, get them escaping was just so cool. Again, that was definitely a Western. They came up on the law came up to the bad guys, the gang, and they had to fight their way out of it. But boy, is it done so well. And the smoke, anytime a beam of light would come through the motel, there'd be this smoke. Paxton, once there was a bullet hole in the front door, he starts burning up. It's just so great. And
the action is incredible. But I think that scene I thought was really important is we needed Caleb to earn some trust with the bandits that he's maybe going to join. but we don't have him kill anybody yet because that's kind of the will he, won't he tension for a while. And that way he's able to endear himself without, I guess, losing his soul. I don't know if that's, but
I don't know. I mean, he does kill a bunch of people in this movie, right? It's just that they're vampires.
Well, how much does Caleb actually kill the vampires versus the vampires' weird decision making causes them to die? Or May saves him basically, right?
I mean, at the very least, Caleb's choices lead to all the vampires dying.
Sure, but also, I mean, you talked about how it's subversion. May is the one that saves Caleb at the end. If May doesn't knock away Jesse's gun, I mean, presumably he's going to shoot Caleb, and Caleb's going to bleed out on Main Street. And she also saves his sister. I don't know. I mean, maybe that you've convinced me. This is actually May's movie because Caleb doesn't really do anything. He just is kind of a lump of nothing. Yeah, he doesn't.
And that's part of why I like the vampires.
He only saves them. That hotel scene. That's the only time he saves them. Otherwise, he's just kind of a passenger.
Right. And that's where I come back to the fairy tale thing. The protagonist is always the most boring character in the fairy tale, right? And part of why I like the vampire characters so much is because Caleb is such a nothing. Like, I don't care about Caleb.
You're really talking, this is May's movie because Caleb doesn't really learn or change anything. He doesn't have an arc, really. He's nothing. He doesn't grow. He doesn't change. May's the one that changes, both literally and metaphorically. Like, she sees, I guess maybe, killing people is wrong. I thought it was worth it to live 8 billion years, but she's the one who actually changes.
But does she? Like, I don't even know if I think she changes, really.
Oh,
I mean, she changes because she's given a blood transfusion, but she doesn't. I mean, the degree of her changes, she comes around to realizing that she doesn't want to hang out with these other vampires anymore. But I don't know that she ever really makes a moral decision about that she shouldn't be killing people.
I mean, I guess maybe I disagree because she definitely doesn't. Before Caleb, she wouldn't. I don't think she would have ever swatted Jesse's gun away when he was trying to shoot somebody. I don't think that would have ever happened.
Yeah, she loved Caleb. She loved Caleb.
Right, and then she also saved Caleb's sister. Caleb's sister, she literally risked her life to pull the sister out of the station wagon or whatever it is, and that's when Homer follows them in a desperate attempt to find his new companion or whatever. But yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just true love. She meets. She's transformed by the love of a good man.
Vampires can't find true love, Ben. Is that what you're saying?
No, they can. It's clearly.
What about the love between Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt? That's as true a love as has ever been committed to film.
Or Keanu and Swayze, they loved each other.
Can you imagine if they were vampires? Can you imagine night surfing?
Point Break. Let's write it now. Point Break as vampires. It needs to happen.
Oh, man.
Okay. Well, people can love each other. I'm advocating that May was transformed by the love of a good man. I don't know. I mean, no, she clearly loves him. And that's what motivates it. She's I don't know. She's the one that's make a moral choice at all.
Back to, does she love him like a romantic partner, or does she love him like a dog?
I think dog is probably, because she never really kissed him. He was always the one trying to kiss her.
No, for a movie that's as sexy as this movie is, there is absolutely nothing graphic in that.
Honestly, I was shocked, but I was totally expecting a gratuitous sex scene in an 80s movie, a rated R 80s movie, and there's no sex scene. I was kind of blown away by that.
No, there's just a lot of biting people's arms.
Yeah, a lot of throat slitting and blood draining.
Put that in the dog camp, biting the hand that feeds you, literally.
Yeah, pretty good.
See what you did there.
She is very maternalistic too. She's always like stroking his head as he's laying there. That's okay. That's something.
Well, unless anybody has anything else they want to add, should we just give our letterbox or rating on the movie?
Sure.
All right, Eric. As Eric Houston as our guest, would you like to go first? If you have a rating out of 5 stars, you'd like to give it.
Yes. Well, of course, I am on Letterboxd.
Okay.
So feel free to follow me there, Eric R. Houston. I gave this thing 5 out of 5, and a like, a
little heart.
Is that the strongest amount of affection you can give it on Letterboxd? Is a heart?
Yeah, the most you can like a movie on Letterboxd is 5 stars and a heart.
Okay, I didn't know if there were different emoticons. If there was like
question? Do you have like different we did The Toxic Avenger. Like that's a tough movie to rate because like is it a great movie? Not really. Like do you really would you put this up against like 5-star like Oscar-winning best movies you've seen kind of thing? Or I'm just wondering like where are you going with the 5-star?
Sure. Well, one, I mean, I think that all of this is subjective, right? So sure. As much as possible when I'm rating something, it's based on how much I liked it, right? And to me, 5 stars is perennial favorite. Like the first time I watched this movie, I absolutely fell in love with it. That affection was not diminished in any way for me on the second viewing. I don't think a movie needs to be perfect to be worth 5 stars. I always think of Citizen Kane, which is absolutely one of my favorite movies, and obviously everybody loves it. But there's that shot near the end of Citizen Kane where he does a transition with a super tight close-up of a parrot that's like rotoscoped, but it's rotoscoped wrong, so you can see through its eyeball into the scene and it doesn't look right. Every movie has its crappy parrot shot.
Okay.
So I don't think you need to be perfect to be 5 stars. But yes, would I put this up against anything else I've rated 5 stars or the supposed greats of cinema? Absolutely. I say without hesitation, sir, today, that this is Catherine Bigelow's finest movie. I think this is a better movie.
From one Eric to another. Okay.
I think this is a better movie than The Hurt Locker.
I agree.
I think this is a better movie than Point Break. And I would put this up against any movie you would care to throw at me.
Yeah, Zero Dark 30's that hasn't aged great, so that's a tough one. But wow, I don't know if I would say it's her best movie. Interesting, not total sidebar. She hasn't put out a movie in a really long time. What's going on there? I don't understand. I was just looking at
what was Detroit? Was that the name of the last one?
Yeah,
that didn't go very well.
So you think it's just a reflection of that? Because that was.
I think she's in a little bit director jail, just like a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay. And Cameron gets to make Blue People movies for the rest of his life. Interesting.
He's been 13 years. It's coming eventually this December.
When you are personally responsible for 2 of the top 5 highest-grossing films of all time, you get to make whatever movie you want to.
So we need Catherine Bigelow to make the next Avengers movie or something like that, so she can keep cranking them out.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I would love it.
Rated R Avengers directed by Catherine Bigelow.
What would be a good Marvel movie for Catherine Bigelow to make? Like X-Men.
Blade or something?
Yeah. Can you imagine her?
What's Kevin Feige going to let her do, though? I mean, he's not going to let her make it violent and this level.
Fine. I can get over that, but like, can you imagine her bringing this spirit, like this attitude to an X-Men movie?
I don't
like
think
if instead of May was Kitty Pryde, that would be Bill Paxton as Wolverine.
Yeah.
Come on.
Bring him back from the dead. Let's get it going.
That's a movie.
Yes. Wow. Now
Keanu could be Cyclops.
Yes. Oh, let's do it. Well, so I'm not as quite as high in this movie as you are, Eric Houston. I give it a 4-star. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, the Bill Paxton. I mean, I'm gonna just YouTube those scenes just to get, if I'm feeling a little down and I want to feel good, I'm just gonna watch Bill Paxton cook. So 4 stars for me. That's where I land on this.
Well, I agree with one of the 2 Erics. Which one is it? Boom, boom, boom. 4 stars for me. I'm totally enamored for 2/3 of the movie, and even if Catherine Bigelow didn't really care how it ended, or just kind of like, blah, here's your ending, blah, done. Just deal with it. It bothered me enough that I was like, I felt so close to being almost a perfect movie. I don't mean perfect in the sense that there's no bad shots. Obviously, you can have some dumb shot in it that wouldn't necessarily invalidate the whole movie. It just didn't stick the landing. It didn't make a choice. It flinched. It had the chance to go for it, and then it just like, nah. And it's fine if Catherine Bigelow didn't care, but she made me care for 2/3 of the movie, and then I felt kind of bummed out and frustrated with the bizarre, we're just going to end it. Not enough to keep it from being a bad movie. It's compelling. I recommend watching it for sure, but it's not going to be up there in my all-time. I love this movie so much. And sorry, I talked over you, Eric Houston.
Oh, I was trying to talk over you, so that's fine. But no, I was just going to say, I just want to clarify. When I say that I don't think Catherine Bigelow cared about things, I just mean those things weren't her priority. I think she cared about this movie very much.
Oh, no. I'm not saying she didn't care about the movie at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying I felt like we were on a certain trajectory, and there are like 3-4 different ways we could have turned. And we just, instead of turning any of those, we just kind of stopped.
Yeah, I mean, I think the movie ended. I think it's like a Marx Brothers movie where you get to the 90 minutes and they're just like, I guess this is over now.
Yeah, that would make some sense. But that's kind of how I felt. It petered out. It didn't like, you sold me so much on the misery of this, on the visceral, nihilistic, and thrill. It could be thrill because, I mean, Bill Paxton's definitely having fun being a vampire and murdering people. And then, no, not quite. So, I mean, that's my biggest qualm. And I say this liking so many of the shots in the end. I like the semi. I like him riding a horse into town. I mean, I was giddy. I was like, I love that shot. I just don't think it works, the gel together.
Well, you mentioned shots, like the way that she films dusk, with the sun coming up. It's so beautiful. Like, over the like Texas fields and ranches. Really amazing.
I love the setting. The setting is just immaculate. It's just incredible.
How about the part where they've set the RV on fire and they're standing silhouetted against this burning RV?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I
get the impression that the vampires seem to only ever do anything like 2 hours before sunrise.
Yeah, their timing is terrible.
I'm like, why aren't you guys starting your stuff earlier in the evening? It's always just
get these guys a couple of coffins too. Like, what are we doing here? Get a coffin, throw it in the back of the truck. Yeah.
Get a watch.
Get a watch. So next thing, the 5 degrees of Field of Dreams. Everybody's been waiting for this. Eric, would you like to go first? Would you like to connect this film, Near Dark, to Field of Dreams in 5 steps?
Eric, I would love to.
That's the kind of energy. That's the Bill Paxton energy we need for this.
Now, I tried. This is my first time doing this, so I think I did this right. Here we go. So Near Dark, you've got your Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton is in Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
Who's in Risky Business with your favorite and mine, Curtis Armstrong. Who is in Revenge of the Nerds with Timothy Busfield.
Oh, I love it.
Who is in Field of Dreams.
I love it. Oh, I love it.
Awesome. Love Edge of Tomorrow. Great movie. I forgot Bill Paxton was in that.
I did too.
Just like the angry drill sergeant guy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can do all Bill Paxton, because I went Bill Paxton too. So I went Near Dark, Bill Paxton. He's in Aliens with Jeanette Goldstein. I was trying to see if I could do an all Cameron one. Didn't work out. Then I went to Terminator 2, and Jeanette Goldstein's also in that. She plays his stepmom, I think. Yes, I believe that's right. Yeah, she dies by the T-1000. Joe Morton is also in Terminator 2. He's in Zack Snyder's Justice League. A real winner of a film. And our guy, technically his voice, he's credited as an actor in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Kevin Costner, and he's in Field of Dreams.
Wow. And of course, we all know Paxton and Goldstein were also in Titanic together.
Oh, she's in Titanic?
She's in Titanic. She's one of the people in steerage. I forget what they refer to them as, but
okay.
All right. Well, just on a side note, the lead of this is Adrian Pasdar, and I spent most of the movie wondering, where do I know this guy from? And I tried my best to not look it up. I was thinking, how do I know this guy? How do I know this guy? And then I eventually had to cave. He's one of the characters in Heroes, which I definitely haven't seen all of, but I was really into for a couple of seasons. He's some mayor guy in that. Doesn't neither here nor there.
Who is he in this movie?
The lead, Caleb. He's the guy that plays Caleb.
Oh, yes, you're right. I spent the whole movie, too, like, he was in some TV show, yep. Okay.
Yeah, he's the guy that can fly, and he's the mayor. So it drove me absolutely batty. But I finally got that result. So, no, I did not do Bill Paxton, sorry. I used this guy, Adrian Pasdar. He's in Top Gun That's his first role. He's one of the military guys. I don't remember what is a small role. Obviously, I did use Tom Cruise though. Tom Cruise is the lead in Top Gun, and Tom Cruise is also in a movie called Interview with a Vampire, which we referenced a few times. And then Christian Slater is also in Interview with a Vampire, and Christian Slater is in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner, who is in Field of Dreams.
Very
That was
nice.
my route.
Awesome. Well, so the next thing we'll do to reveal the movie we're doing next week, we're going to do a little trivia. So I'll give 5 clues. Again, the clues are giving you what the next movie we're doing next week is.
Okay.
Eric Wayne,
I'm
is this
trying
your
to guess
selection?
the movie.
Trying to guess the movie. I'll do 1 clue at a time. We have been kind of doing, you get 1 guess throughout the whole thing, but you can keep guessing. It's fine.
Okay.
But Eric Lane, is this your pick?
No, we have a guest
Okay.
next week as well, and he picked this film.
Okay.
So was not my choice. So
Okay. Is it Monkey Bone?
yes, you got it.
Brendan Fraser's Best.
No, not Monkey Bone. Okay, clue number 1. This movie lost the Palme d'Or at Cannes to a movie titled 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days.
Unhelpful.
Well, if you knew that movie, it would give the year that this movie was released. But
I don't. Right.
I'm a strong believer that you still have to take a shot, just in case. So I'm going to say it Shakes the Clown.
nope. Not
Okay.
Is that the what is Shakes the Clown? That's not the Jerry Lewis movie, is it?
No, that's Bobcat Goldthwait and Jackie Brown.
Okay.
Also a Palme d'Or winning film.
Yeah. Well, it lost the Palme d'Or.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It was nominated though.
Yeah.
Okay. Clue number 2. The title of this movie was taken from the opening line of a 20th century Irish poem by William Butler Yeats. Yeats? I think that's how that's pronounced. And the title of the poem is Sailing to Byzantium. Sorry.
Squint a little harder, buddy.
My writing's not good. Sailing to Byzantium is the
Okay.
poem.
Unhelpful.
I will guess Far from the Madding Crowd.
No, that's not it. Okay, the star of this movie sued Paramount for bonuses and improper expense deductions, eventually resolving it in 2010, with Paramount paying this actor more than $17 million.
Okay.
This is a movie people have seen, right?
Very, very much so, yes.
Okay.
So give you a little more clue when it was out.
Well, I want to make a guess. I'm gonna say it's National Lampoon's European Vacation.
No, that's not it. This movie was based on a novel released in 2005.
And you're sure it's not European Vacation?
2005. At least I'm in the right decade, maybe. I guess between 2005 and 2010. Okay.
No,
Is
no
it-
guess.
Is it
No.
Adaptation?
No,
That was 2002.
no. But that's literally one of my all-time favorite movies.
That's
I
an
love that
incredible movie.
No, so last clue. This film won the Academy Award for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay.
Okay.
Supporting actor?
Supporting actor, yep.
I mean, I can go through. So Crash won in 2005. 2006 was Departed. 2007 is No Country for Old Men. 2008
No Country for Old
Slumdog
Men?
Millionaire. 2009 was Hurt Locker.
Sorry, what was your guess, Eric?
Was it No Country for Old Men then?
Ben, do you have a guess?
Of all those ones that won Best Picture in that era, No Country for Old Men makes the most sense to me.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, that is correct. No Country for Old Men. That's the
I never
movie
would
with-
have come up with that if Ben wasn't listing off.
Yeah,
Academy.
I'm pretty okay with movie years. My brain can somehow do the chronology, kind of sticks. And I, once upon a time, went through and watched all the Best Picture winners a couple decades ago.
Our first Best Picture winner on the Pot of Dreams that we will have done. Well, A Toxic Avenger was our first. This will be our second.
I mean, it's up there, right? I mean, I believe that movie won a special award for head crusher.
It's got to have
It
the highest
deserved it.
head
They
crush.
should have created a special category. It deserved a
Right?
special.
Although
Absolutely.
Near Dark, there was almost a head crush, right? Didn't he? He ended up breaking the guy's neck in the bar, but I really thought he was just going to squash his head.
Sure, that would have been pretty good.
It was Lance Hendrickson, right? He was the one, or was it Paxton? Maybe I can't remember now. Someone was squeezing ahead.
Sure. I believe it was Mark McKinney.
It was the little kid. All right, well, unless you guys have anything else to say about Near Dark, I just want to give another special thanks to Eric Houston, North Metro TV, MovieManEric.com. Thank you so much for joining. It was a real pleasure.
I had a great time. Thank you guys so much for inviting me on. Yeah.
Big thanks. This is a movie I don't think I would have seen if you hadn't had us watch it, and my life is better for having seen it. It was, despite my qualms, it was excellent. It's like, wow.
Well, I mean, we've been arguing between 5 stars and 4 stars. I
Right.
think we can all say we all liked the movie.
I had a great
very
time.
much.
Yes. Well, thanks again. If you want to just speak on anything, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll call it
The
here.
floor is yours.
Oh my goodness, so many topics I could possibly talk about. I will just say thank you very much for having me on. You guys have a great show here. I appreciate you letting me guest on it and shoot my mouth off about a semi-obscure vampire movie. And please go look at my things, and I hope that you like them and that you leave me positive comments.
All right, well, you get a heart from me. I'm giving you a heart. All right. All right.
My goodness.
All
Oh
right.
my goodness, 2 hearts.
Great. Well, thanks again, and go watch No Country for Old Men for next week, and we will talk to you later.